This episode is packed with practical coaching insights. We dive into the inner workings of professional rugby academies and what they're doing to develop top-tier players. Plus, I want these videos to be interactive. If something stands out to you or you have a different perspective, drop a comment below. Let's start a discussion and help each other grow as coaches. So grab your notebook and let's get into it. Today I'm super excited to have Highlanders, Sale Sharks legend, Johnny Leota on the show. Welcome.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me on board.
And so why I'm so excited is you are now the academy coach at Sale Sharks. Can you tell me a bit about that?
All right, cool. I'm the under-18s coach at Sale Sharks, so I lead the under-18s in terms of rugby, and I assist the under-17s. So what my role looks like at the club is trying to bridge the gap between the under-18s who are potentially going to go through to the senior academy, and I guess just in general, trying to allow the boys to express what like their point of difference are, and grow a passion for the game, and to stay in the game and stay involved, and to like grow the sport. And like I said before, like passion for the game.
So what does your year look like with the academy?
So we try to block it out. Obviously, like kids and being at school, like so much going through their mind. So we try to put like a plan together in terms of what it looks like. So I'll chuck up my slide here. Cool. So how the season works over here is their preseason is back end of June. So once they finish school, so like in their school break, we'll have like a six week preseason. And in that preseason, like we like to cover more like player awareness stuff, or like where they are, where they want to be, and how they get there, and them trying to like have an awareness, like self-awareness of like what their point of difference is. So when they play games like that, they're working towards that. Then as a team, like we try to lay down like our foundation skills that work with our principles. So if we can align those, then we probably get the best in terms of what our team looks like. And we try put like a pitch together to come up with a plan that suits the group that we have. And that's what preseason looks like in terms of like player awareness. And it's more the South trying to get them prep and them getting awareness of what their strengths are, how they work to get towards it, what they need to do to get towards that point, and then how they express it in the game. So that's all South in preseason. Then the school block looks different. They break off, they go to school in September. And from September to say mid-December is the school block, what would say for like our training block. And then that's when we go more into the tactical side of things in terms of game management, game understanding, how they can use their point of difference and within like a game plan or like a framework. So we work towards trying to put a framework in place so they have like game understanding and game management. And then also like that's a big block where we can have like positional awareness in terms of your front rows, your back three, your midfielders, your inside backs, your back rows, because they all have like different positional attributes, and we try to put more focus towards that. So when they go towards the school games, they're not too focused on trying to do what we do at the Sharks at school, but more focus on what they've learned over preseason about themselves and have like a better positional awareness in terms of attributes. And then the game block, which is mid-December through to the back end of February, we will move towards performance and them expressing everything that they've learned in the first two blocks. So like player identified, like coach and leaders led. So players coming up with information and what they think we should cover in terms of content or aims or focuses leading into games. So they're prepped and they're in the best position. So once those games come, they feel confident in themselves. They have clarity on what they need to do. And which should give them confidence to express what they think they're really good at.
And are you seeing anything that a lot of these players are lacking that you really have to focus on? Like, is there a general area that club or school coaches should be focusing a bit more on?
I think for us, we try to manage like their load in terms of like too much rugby, because it can sort of get to a place where like they're probably doing too much. So you got, for argument's sake, they train here on the Monday. They might train at school Tuesday. They may play Wednesday. They may train to school Thursday. They'll have uh, sometimes maybe have like a captain's run Friday, play Saturday, and then might play club rugby on Sunday. So for us, it's about us trying to manage like where the boys are in terms of like workload, because like in terms of growing a passion for the game, if you have too much, you don't want them to lose like interest in the game, because it's just like every day and it's just a slog. And if you're doing it for like doing that for like 3 or 4 months, by the time it comes to like the game block, like they're all worn out. So for us as coaches, we try, or well, as staff members, we try to like manage their load to keep them interested and keep them in a place where like they think they're continuously growing.
And what are you doing to make it fun, keep the trainings interesting, and keep them excited about coming to training?
It's funny. Like we block it up. Obviously, when the boys come in, we have like forced fun. So we force them to have fun. Well, that's what we call it anyway. Um, and it's just allowing, I guess, like when they come in, it's allowing them to catch up with each other. They all come from different schools. They're all doing different things at their own schools. So being able to share what they've done at their own school with someone at the other school, you know what it's like when you go to like trainings and stuff. Sometimes like the first thing you don't want to talk about is rugby. You just want to catch up with your mates. You want to let them enjoy things. You want them to just be normal kids, like grow like their relationships outside of like rugby. And when they come in here in terms of fun, we sort of create competitions outside of rugby, which in the positional groups. We play games like Articulate. You played that before that, yeah?
No, what's that one?
Um, so yeah, you get cards and they have the words on there, and you have to explain to your team what these words are. And you have 30 seconds to get through like a list of words. The team that gets through the most words in a minute ends up being the team that wins. So if you end up winning, you get points towards like your positional groups. Um, how else do we create fun? And I guess sometimes as well for the guys who are like really into it, like just giving them like rugby knowledge in terms of, I know it's a word that's passed around quite a lot in terms of detail, but sometimes like they just love detail, the detail and like what you do in terms of rugby, which is could be your set piece moves, could be your line out stuff, could be your attacking shape. Um, and sometimes it's good. It's fun for them because it's something different from what they do at club and what they do at school. So coming in gives them like a different perspective of learning something different.
And are you doing any theming within the academy?
Yeah, we're quite big in theming. This year, we've aligned it with the video game. Have you heard of Call of Duties?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we've switched our one over. We've gone with Jaw of Duties. We've gone with Jaw of Duties, and we'll split the groups up. So the front row, well, the Type Five are the heavy artillery. The back row are the Royal Marines. The 9 and 10s are the SWAT. Our midfielders are the Cavalry Scouts, and our back three are the SAS. And so what I got them to do with that is I got them to align what their roles are in those positional groups and how they align with those forces. So the heavy artillery in terms of tanks, big boys, they've used the analogy of like tanks being able to like smash through things, like dent the defensive line, take it down. Back rows talked about Royal Marines being relentless, like doing the work behind the scenes, which is like your Jacqueline, your carries to create momentum for like the SWAT team. SWAT teams are the ones that come up with all the plans the plan of attack, and like best way to take down the defense. So the SWAT team came up with that. Our cavalry scouts, they talked about them being the eyes in the ears, eyes in the air for everyone else. So being the connection between the SWAT team and the SAS. And the SAS spoke about them being like secret service, like where they're needed, is where they'll come in, where they'll sort of roam on attack and place themselves where they can breach the defense line. So in terms of aligning rugby with like the theming, like they put that together, and that's how they thought it came along. So like in terms of like our theming, and how we aligned it with our principles. So if these are our defense principles. Obviously, the aim is to get the ball back. If a way for us to do that is by a scanimation, so being able to identify the threats on the run through communication and a speed to set. So if we can get our speed to set, that allow us to identify who's in front of us, who's the threat, who we need to take out. And then obviously, if we do that, then obviously we apply pressure. If we can apply pressure with being connected and being physical, that's an opportunity for us to win the ball back for either making good reads or forcing errors. If they manage to hold on to the ball, then we go into, if we have really good line speed and connection, and we get a really good tackle, that puts us in a position to where we can contest the ruck through dominant tackles, through firing, which is like blasting through, and jackals, like contesting the ball. So those are like our three principles that we chase in terms of our defense and what that looks like. Any questions from you about that?
What are some of your policies around the tackle and breakdown area?
So we try to read cues and clues. So in terms of contesting, like it's about making the right decisions in terms of when to contest and when not to. And the cue we sort of use is, if we got dominant foot, we'll hit them behind the game line. We're probably in a good position where we can contest the ruck, or we can blast past it. If we're on the back foot, and we'll probably haven't given ourselves the best position to contest. So we sort of just fold out, get people in line, and then try apply that pressure so we get on the front foot to put us in a good position to contest the rucks later on.
And how about chasing the kicks after? What do you have any policies around kick chase?
We don't really go too much into detail of doing that. Like the only policy I'd say we would have is kicker stays, kicker, which is usually your 9 or 10 stays, and your 15 to hold the backfield, and just have 13 on the front line. In terms of that kick chase, we like to kick it long and deep because we back ourselves to like defend quite well in their half, and if they want to run outside it, that becomes a challenge for us to win the ball back in their half. If we do that, then there's less work for us to do on attack. So in terms of like our game understanding and stuff around that, we will look to kick deep rather than out.
And I'm just seeing around the connected line speed, how are you focusing? Are you having a blitz, and how are you getting each individual player to know his role? Like, are you working in the groups of three, and who's tackling high? Are you going for a jackal? Are you going just to maybe contest it, slow the ruck down around that area?
Like we do have the standard like ruck defense, which is like your A, B, C's around the ruck. Your C's are always going to lead the line speed. Your B's are going to watch the 9 if 9 jumps out. The only time C won't lead the line speed is if your 9's jumping out. So the pitches changes. So we try to get them more in the eye line than pass the ball, so they don't create like their dog leg for the attack to exploit. In terms of trying to break down who does what, we're not big on detail in terms of that stuff, like low inside tackler, outside tackler, because it's more of an exploring stage where we don't want to say, okay, this is right, this is wrong. because in terms of like how they might see it might be different, but it might work for them. So if say for argument's sake, if they do chop from the inside and you do contest from the outside, I have no issues with that. If you do chop from the outside and he jackals from the inside, I don't have issues with that as long as it falls in line with what our principles are. Like as long as we're connected, as long as we're applying pressure, as long as we've got good spacing, then it's open fields in terms of what it looks like and competing around the rope.
And that ABC, are they folding around? Will C go open directly, or are you setting up A first and then they're folding around?
Yeah, we like it to be more fluid around the ruck. So if we can have two folding at all times, we should have like equal space on both sides of the pitch. And if we can get that, then it allows us to do this scamination. So you're scanning on the run, you're identifying who's in front of you, you know who the threat is. Then you apply pressure through good line speed and being connected, and that allows you to make those decisions to compete. So we try to make so if you think of our defensive principle as like a cycle, that's what we try to get to go to. So if we don't win the ball back and the compete, then we go back through the cycle again. So back to the start, the scamination, working to get yourself into best position, identifying who the threat is, speed to set, and then you apply that connected line speed to apply pressure, and then hopefully put yourself in a position to compete for the next one. And it's just a repeated cycle of that, really.
And how are you working on when they're scanning? Do you have any ways to get them to communicate or how they communicate?
Ours, now one of the biggest thing I find is like communication. What does it sound like? What is effective communication? You know what is you know what it's like when you watch and you just hear people like, "Oh, we need line speed. We need line speed. Get off the line. Get off the line." But in terms of like it's good having line speed, but if you have no idea who you're taking, it's just as bad as not having line speed, because if you don't know who you're on, you go off line speed. Having identify people in front of you, like space can open up in front of you as well. So in terms of what communication looks like, our speed to set stuff, like it's pointing, it's fingering. So like we spoke about, we'll get to in our non-negotiable. So it's our scanning and our communication and our effort stuff. So if we're not communicating, the communication has to start from the ruck. So I find if you're A, B, C haven't identified who they're taking, it makes it harder for everyone else in D, E, and so on and so on. It's just repetition in like ruck drills in
Yeah.
terms of like getting numbers around. Like we said, so if you have a ruck, and say for argument's sake, you have two on each side. On the right hand side, that's where the attack's going to attack. We get two folding around. The two that folding around become A and B. The two that were on that open side, who was A, they move out to C, and then they become the people who lead the line speed in terms of the ruck defense.
And you're talking about the non-negotiables?
Yeah. So here, we'll come back to those. So these are like non-negotiables that we have. So scanning, identify like best pictures. So this is both sides of the ball. So identify the pictures that are in front of you. The communication, so the action words. So when we talk about action words, it's like I'm B, I'm taking inside C. I'm watching 9. If 9 jumps, I'm watching 9. If it's further out wide, it's you identifying, okay, the B's on C. I'm going to take the hard line runner. The next one out might say, okay, I'm going soft runner out the back. So that in terms of like communication, like that's what action words sound like, instead of I've got him, line speed. Like it doesn't really. It is an action, it leads to an action, but it doesn't give you clarity on who you're on, if that makes sense.
And do you have actual like a list of words of how you want the players, like how you want them communicating? Because that's one of the big problems I've found is the vocabulary used. Often players just don't know it and they've never been coached it, and so we come in and ask them to be good communicators, but they actually don't know the language to use to be able to do it effectively?
Yeah, and some of that's like I was saying, like the main ones are those ones that spoke then in terms of like action words where uh for argument's sake, it's the ruck defense. I'm A, B, and C. Um, it's B talking up to 9. It's C telling everyone he's got 9. He's got the C. He's going to lead the line speed. It's the D on the outside saying he's going to check like the hard runner. It's the guy on the outside of that saying he's going to go at the back. If you flip it over to attack, it's uh it's it's communication and action words in terms of because say space is out on the edge. Uh, Typical thing you hear is it's on out wide. So, okay, cool. That's good scanning, good identification. So what communication are you going to give to the guy that's on the inside? So based on the scenario that you have, how do I get my communication from the wing and towards the 10, who's the person who's going to make the decision? So basically what we get them to do is relay the calls. So it's not, so obviously the relay the call is what you want to hear, but also how we're going to get that ball to that space. So if it's a crossfield kick, the wingers relaying it into the guys inside of him are usually the centers. Centers are relaying it back into the 10s. And so that way, in terms of communication, it's like Chinese whispers, isn't it? Like it's going down the line. And like how I spoke before about force fun and like that articulate. So that articulate is like a communication game. So it helps them express and express like the words that they're saying to articulate the words that they're seeing on the paper. And we're hoping for the transfer of that onto the pitch.
And if you're seeing that during training, how are you telling them in the moment to communicate better, or are you taking notes and coming back after training to improve that communication?
We have drivers. We have drivers who are usually the 9 and the 10s. How we get communication from the wingers is like we give them challenges before sessions of okay, like what things are you going to try today to get yourself in the game? Because we want our wingers getting involved, and that means leaving the wing. So get them to give me 4 different ways they're going to get their selves in the game to get on the ball, and they give me 4 ways. So if it's a crossfield kick, if it's inside 9, so they have to go have those discussions with those 9s, those 10s. If it's inside the midfielders behind a forward pod, then those are the people they're going to go have conversations with in terms of getting themselves in the game. So how communication looks like with that is those players speaking to the people that they need to get themselves in the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And so do you also have, how do you coordinate with the other coaches on the field
Oh,
around?
we have session, yeah. So we have like session plans. So there's 2 of us. We set ourselves challenges in terms of what he looks for. So our current forwards coach, he'll set out forwards challenges for the forwards, and he'll watch all like the close quarter stuff. So which are like your speeds to support stuff, which is the clear outs, uh, your clear outs, your ball presentation, and your carry. So he watches out for all that stuff. So he's constantly scanning all that stuff in the moment. And say for myself, where I'll look at like the bigger picture in terms of what we're trying to achieve for our attack and defense. So for our attack, I might be watching like our momentum. Are we gaining momentum? If we have momentum, like what are we doing on top of that? If we're not getting the momentum, well, why aren't we getting momentum? Are we going into like one-off rugby? Are we moving the ball? And then on defense, I'm looking at what our spacing looks like as a whole and what the line speed looks like off the back of that, sort of what's like the bigger picture stuff. And then when they go into the break, we leave them with like the drivers who are usually your 9s, 10s, and then your defensive leaders who are usually like your midfielders, back rowers. They lead the discussions in there. We listen, and if there's anything that we think needs to be added in based on what we've seen, then we'll sort of prompt them on what we've heard. But if like to be fair, like 90% of the time, like they're on it, like they know what they're doing and what they're not doing. So we let them like problem solve and come up with what they think should be happening in the next block when we're playing games. So when it
And
comes to games, like they've done it in training, they know what the process is. When they go to the game, like they're running them themselves.
so out of all those skills, are there any that you really have to focus on during the season?
Uh, so if we look at say how the preseasons run, what we talked about running our principles, the defensive principles I just showed you then. Uh, uh, these are these are the skills that align with what our principles are. So if you think about our tackle, so we have a real big focus on getting ourselves in close, to get our feet in close, be low on the approach, so we can get our takeoff and chase our feet, so we can get a good, nice chop tackle, which aligns with like our principle, which is our get off the line to make the tackle, and then our breakdown. So that's like low in approach in terms of getting yourself on the ball for the jackal. So getting your chest over the ball to put yourself in the best position to compete for the ruck. And if you flip it on the other side of attack, everything was about say for argument's sake, if we carry, it's using your footwork in the contact. You're fighting to stay up, so that's what FTSU stands for. And then it falls into like the breakdown stuff, which is our speed of support, like low in the approach, like wrap your arms and like get rid of the threat that's at the ruck. So speed of ruck and what it looks like. So if you look at the catch and pass, and our kicking stuff, I'll show you what our attacking principles look like. So if you look at that, like everything's like play at pace, speed to everything. So we call it like SOS. So when you need help, you have your SOSs to come and to help you out in terms of us creating fast ball. Like how do you create fast ball for us? It's your speed of support. It's your carry to dent the line to create momentum. Your footwork, your fight to stay up. Your ball movement. You're moving your ball to best space. Like we don't like just the one-off rugby. It's ugly. It's boring. It's not attractive. Some like it. You work different personnels. So we talk about like playing at pace, and that speaks to everything. So good carry, evasion, good presentation, ball presentation stuff, speed to support, which is like taking out the threat so we can create quick ball for our backs or edge forwards to attack best space. How we do that, we do it through the triple threat. And that's through being a running threat. You have to manipulate the defense through being a running threat. So it's not about like you just passing for the sake of passing. It's about you committing defenders, open up space for the people around you. And like I said, with using footwork, you can do that. It's kicking out to the next man. Kicking out to the next man, him coming up. If he decides to mark the person on the outside of him, who's the hardline runner, then that creates a one-on-one with me and my person in front of me. So I'm creating space for myself. But if I end up kicking out to the second man, he comes on me, then it creates that opportunity for me to exploit the space through passing. And we also talk with the backs, like with those crossfield options, crossfield kick options. If we've dented them through the middle and we've got them on the back foot, the defense gets tighter. They've created that space for crossfield kick option. If the defense is spread out evenly, the backfield, say you got two in the backfield, to hold the space in between the on the 15s means there's like kicking opportunities for us to kick to score or exert pressure through little chip kicks over the top, and variations of a play is like having adaptable style of play for players to be able to express like their point of difference. And what that means for us is it might be a case, say for argument's sake, our 9s and 10s are really good game management players. We're probably from our own half in order for them to get a feel of what the game might look like. We might have to allow them to manage the game. So that might mean, okay, kicking or getting set to kicking, getting set to kick. So it allows them to manage what that looks like. So it might become like a territory game and kick towards the sideline. If we've got a really good strong pack that are good in scrums, good in lineouts, then we have to adapt to what like our group offers in terms of that. So it might be, say for argument's sake, penalty on a halfway, like we'll always kick towards kick to touch because we want to get our pack to express what they're good at, and that might be like a driving more, or for argument's sake, on the 5 meter penalty from their try line, we might have a pack to want to express like their scrumming stuff, and we're like, okay, actually, let's set up these scenarios in terms of what that looks like for games, and so when the boys know what's coming, they're able to exploit the point of difference. Or it might be a 9 on the opposite side of that, he likes to play fast, and he might like to play fast by quick taps, playing at pace. So that's when we change it up. Okay, we're not kicking a touch for any penalties. Everything's a tap. Catch the defense on the back foot. So in terms of them being able to express what they're good at, that's what we try to do. So the variation of play comes from like what players we have, how they can express that in a game, and what that looks like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome that you're giving your players the freedom within games to express themselves. Huge important factor for their development. How are you applying that in training?
In terms of like the playing styles,
Yeah,
or like
like
expressing the point of difference.
I guess both.
Yeah. So how we do that in training. So what we do is, we got like huddle. We like to watch like sessions back, and you can obviously message the boys. One way we get to do it is to show their point of difference, and how we get them to line up with the boys is we get them to post what their point of difference is on a group, and then once they've done that, then we get them to find the people. So when they get to training, we get them to scan the people who allow them to exploit their point of difference, express their point of difference, which is, it could be a 10 that's really good at passing, and he's probably trying to look for someone that can help him express that. So what does he look for? He looks for someone who's really good at running lines, or someone that knows what they're doing. So they align their point of difference together so they can express it on the pitch. It might be someone who's, if you flip it on the defensive side, someone who's like a really good chop tackler. How does he exploit his point of difference and make it like a super strength? Is he might find someone who's a really good jackler. So the jackler might partner himself up with a guy who's a really good chop tackler, because it gives him a better chance of expressing what he's good at in terms of his point of difference. And then how we do that in the games is we get them in these little chats. We get them to partner up with those people that they think and allow them to express those skills. And we give them like 30 seconds to come up with a plan on what that looks like in the game. Because it's amazing how much these kids actually know. And instead of me trying to tell them, like, a big thing is allowing them to explore and express. Because sometimes like they see it better than you do. So there's no point me saying, okay, because I can't watch and give, say, 60, like 30 players or 45 players on the pitch at once, but the right information. And who best to give you feedback in terms of what they see than your teammates and the guys that can help you explore your point of difference. So giving them a bit of space for them to express and explore that, it's it's crazy, because like when you watch it and it all comes together, it's like magic, man. It's actually like, yeah, it's quite pleasing as a coach for you to see that they actually can express, and from then expressing themselves and exploring what they want to be good at, like, comes fun for them. It's not rammed down their throat. It's like expressive for them. So if you're able to express, Like you have fun, don't you? Then you grow a passion for it. Then you learn how to make yourself better through doing that stuff. And it becomes like like personally as the person, like that becomes like your growth. Like it's learning how to make yourself better. And it's something you can take into like life outside of rugby as well. Like you get better from doing that stuff, knowing what your strengths are, how you can work towards making it better. So
That's a really good way of player development. So you're giving them time and training to work on those skills with that other player, or do they just have a chat and then you play a game and they try and create that opportunity within the game?
yeah. So we just it's just allowing them time, giving them time to talk with the people, who they form combination. Some of them actually work it out before it's even happened. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's where I guess like the game sense, the game management stuff, game understanding, that's where that all comes into place. Like I think at times they're probably not given enough credit of what they know and don't know at times. And that's why sometimes if you actually allow them to speak what they're thinking, that's like, yeah, like they they have better ideas. So you just let them explore, express. And I guess for us as coaches is identifying, okay, maybe he doesn't get it. He hasn't been able to identify when he can express his skills. And that's when we come in as coaches and try to come up with some ideas of them getting themselves in the game or involved on the ball, uh, or how they can get themselves into better position to make better reads on defense, um, or how they can see better pitches. And it might be during the session, how we're saying, if I'm refereeing the game and like monitoring like the game thing, it might be the co-coach who's set a challenge for his forward, and he might say, okay, I'm looking at footwork, and if this next say in the game, if he's running hard lines the whole game, that's when he comes in with an intervention, and he might say, okay, your next 3 carries, you're not allowed to run it straight. You have to use footwork. Or he might say, because everything he does is just carry, 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 he might say, okay, the next 3 carries you have to use footwork to commit the outside defender and use your pass. And we're not so worried about like the mistake. It's more about actually trying, because I think like the biggest mistake you make is the one you don't take. If you don't try it, you won't know. If you do try it, you make the mistake, then you have a problem. Then you have a solution you can come up with. If you do it really well, it's like, okay, how do I maintain doing that like that? If you don't do it well, it's like, okay, how do I come up with a plan so next time I go to do it, my pass is better and it's accurate.
And is that freedom expressed within a certain structure, or when you're playing these games, is it sort of almost like a free for all where you're moving away from your game plan?
Yeah, so our game plans, like our aims are usually, so for our defense, it's our physicality and relentless pressure. And for our attack, it's our play at place with variation, which sort of falls in line with like the triple threat. And we have like attacking framework in order for them to get momentum to play at pace. But like I said before, if they find like a way that's different and works for the group and for the player, then that's on them. They can explore that. They can do that. Like we're just a framework for them to express what they're good at, so they can develop as rugby players. Because if they're listening to what I'm saying and I'm saying do this, like where does the learning come from them? So that's why I like to let them explore. But like I said before, if they don't know, then that's up to us coaches to identify. Okay, maybe he doesn't know what he's doing there. He's probably someone we need to chat with or have more conversations around. For the guys who do get it and the ones who do explore it, we get them to cut clips after session and send them through. If they have any questions around them exploring the point of difference and not getting things right, they'll send us clips post session or the next day when they can, around any questions that they might have.
Yeah, and so would most of your communication with the players be through chat and video, or do you specifically try and spend some time individually with each player or player groups?
Yeah, we tried because we've got different parts of like the academy. So you have your rugby, you have your S&C, you have your medics, and you have your nutrition and your mind gym, which is like the sports like stuff. So it all runs in different places really, where we try to align as much as we can in terms of times where we can do rugby and rugby reviews, previews. But that's more towards like the game blocks. So sometimes in the um, in the game block specifically, we would do a lot of training previews, game reviews, game previews, just so the boys have an awareness of what we're up against, uh, what we've done, and how it looks like going against the team that we're coming against, so they can express it, or like they have an awareness around it, so they can exploit it through like our principles and like our framework that we have.
And what was the mind one called? What'd you
The
call it?
mind gym.
The mind gym. So
Yeah, so
what's
that's like
is that you leading that, or is that a sports
no, no,
psychologist?
no, yeah. So we have one of our staff members who works with a sports psychologist, and he presents back to the boys in terms of like preparation, routines going into the games, reflections, taking on information, and like how to self-regulate, and to help players like self-regulate when they start feeling like anxiety, or if they get themselves into a like position like on pitch, if they're like making mistakes like over and over again, and like they start getting down, like they come up with like things the boys can do outside of rugby to help them prepare for moments like that on pitch.
That's awesome. So to finish, we'll have a few quickfire questions, and the first is, what's the best piece of advice that you've been given?
Uh, yes, advice. Jeez, it's crazy because I've just had so many. And I guess one I sort of followed is to get to places you've never been, you have to do things you've never done.
Good quote. Good quote. And what does good team culture look like?
A good team culture for me would be enjoyment. I enjoy being around the place. Um, like a good learning environment. Like they're coming, they're hungry to learn, they want to get better. Uh, they're inquisitive, like ask questions, they're comfortable. Everyone's approachable, open-minded, um, and work hard. Definitely have to work hard. Like nothing comes easy, so you have to have like that graft to sort of push yourself on. So yeah, that's what it'd look like for me.
Favorite strike move?
What are we talking about? Line out or
Oh, whatever. Line out of scrum.
go
Just
scrum?
short ball of 10.
Oh, there's this move that Napier boys used to run. It was just number 8 used to break off all the time. Geez, favorite move. I would go. I'd go the old school DM double miss. So 9, 10 to 13, 13 to 15 across the face of the blindside winger. Just
Nice.
simple hands.
What advice would you give to your teenager self if you could go back?
It's hard because I think I wouldn't have ended up where I am at the moment if I didn't go for everything. So obviously, like I was driven. Um, I was always confident. Uh, yeah, I'd probably say, and I wouldn't say I didn't work hard. I worked hard for what I thought was hard at that time and moment. I probably would have paid, you know what? I think I'd probably say work towards more the sports psych of rugby in terms of like setbacks, routines, reflections. Yeah, I'd say pay attention more to that stuff to help myself cope with that stuff like the older I get.
Yeah, you had a couple of quite big injuries over your career. Any learnings from that to help players that may be going through the same process now?
Yeah, yep. It's an opportunity. I think it's an opportunity to grow elsewhere, whether it's outside of rugby. It might be like putting focus towards something else instead of putting all your eggs in one basket for rugby. Or it could be an opportunity to grow elsewhere in terms of physicality. So if it's a knee injury, you probably get stronger in your upper body. It could be doing more rugby analysis in terms of growing your game understanding, game knowledge. It could be an opportunity to make your skills better. But I definitely think outside of not injuries, it's an opportunity really to do something different.
That's a really good answer. And lastly, in your words, what is a good coach?
For me, I think a good coach is one that's innovated. Uh, a good coach is a coach that allows the player to express himself as someone who cares. Uh, so I'm a sucker for quotes. The old quote, and it comes from a coach that I actually think's class, Dave Rennie. His one is nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care, which I think is yeah, well, it aligns with what I think anyway. So I wouldn't give time to someone who I think wouldn't care. So I'd expect the same.
Yep, yep. Anything else that Dave Rennie taught you? I think he's one of the greatest coaches.
Yeah, no, like I say, like innovation, just different ways of seeing things. And he's without actually thinking about it until like I got into my coaching years. Obviously, with our academy, we're quite big on exploring. Where every time like I go into that phase and then I think of exploring, I was just like, oh, actually, we did this with Dave Rennie. And like all these stuff that we did. So in terms of like sharpening your skills and making yourself better, like he gave me an idea. He gave me an idea around tackling. Then me and Frankie Bryant just ran away with it. Like we made it our own. And then obviously we got better and better at it. And it came to the game and he goes, okay, cool. Now show us what you've done with your defense off on pitch. And without actually knowing at that time as a player, like he had set this process in place for us to get to that point where we can like do it in games. So yeah, Dave
Um,
Rennie.
awesome. Legend. Thank you very much, bro.